The throne room of Serath Prime gleamed under crystal chandeliers, reflecting the pale violet light of the planet's twin moons. Despite the grandeur, the hall was silent, save for the low hum of the protective shields and the occasional click of armored boots against polished stone. Saren Vale, a soldier assigned to the Royal Guard, moved through the shadows with practiced ease. He had always been quiet, blending into the background, observing rather than participating in courtly spectacle. Yet that night, the silence carried a tension he had learned to read over years of service. At the far end of the hall, the princess, Lyra, laughed softly with her tutor. She was small for her age, with hair like spun silver and eyes that reflected the twin moons. To anyone else, she seemed fragile, but Saren knew better. He had watched her train in secret corridors, wielding a staff heavier than most of the guards' rifles. She was sharp, brave, and quick, a combination that often led to trouble. The first warning came as a subtle vibration underfoot, a nearly imperceptible hum from the palace's perimeter sensors. Saren froze, scanning the room with the calm of a predator. His instincts told him it wasn't a test. Not tonight. A shadow flickered across the balcony above. He reached for his rifle, trained to intercept threats before they could act. Seconds later, a figure dropped from the shadows onto the floor of the throne room. A masked intruder, clad in dark alloy armor, moved with the fluidity of someone who had been trained for infiltration. He raised his plasma pistol toward the princess. "Princess!" Saren barked, stepping into the line of fire. The intruder fired. Saren moved first, diving sideways and taking the shot himself. The plasma beam struck his shoulder guard, burning a streak into the armor, but leaving him alive. Lyra screamed, dropping to the floor instinctively. Saren rolled toward her, covering her with his own body as the intruder advanced. His rifle barked twice, and the attacker went down, sparks flying from the weapon and igniting a small flame on the polished stone. When the smoke cleared, Saren's breath came hard and fast, his pulse racing. Lyra looked up at him with wide eyes. "You saved me," she whispered. He nodded, brushing dust from his uniform. "You're safe. That's what I do." Before he could check for other threats, the doors to the hall burst open. A wave of light flooded the room, and the figure at the entrance was unmistakable. Queen Alara, Lyra's mother. She moved like a storm, robes trailing, crown catching every shard of moonlight. Her expression was fury incarnate, tempered by fear. "Vale," she thundered, voice echoing off the walls. "Explain." Saren lowered his rifle, hands open. "Your Majesty, there was an intruder." He tried to shoot the princess. I intercepted the shot. The queen's eyes softened slightly as they fell on her daughter, who was trembling but unharmed. Then the storm returned. "You endangered the princess," she snapped. "Do you have any idea what would have happened if—" "Ma'am," Lyra interrupted, pushing herself to her knees. "He saved me." Queen Alara's gaze flickered between soldier and daughter. Saren straightened, meeting her eyes without flinching. There was no arrogance in his posture, only the unspoken truth. He had done what needed to be done. The queen's retinue arrived, taking control of the scene, inspecting the room for additional threats. Saren stepped back, allowing them space, but keeping a vigilant eye on every exit and shadow. He noticed subtle marks on the balcony railing. The intruder hadn't come alone. "Another attempt?" Queen Alara asked, tension threading her voice. "I believe so," Saren replied. "But the immediate threat is neutralized. The princess is unharmed." Lyra, gathering courage, placed a hand on Saren's arm. "Thank you," she said softly. "You were right there." Queen Alara's eyes narrowed. "Lyra, you could have been killed." She turned to Saren. Soldier, how many shots did you take? Saren lifted his shoulder slightly, showing the burn mark and singed fabric.
1.
It did not prevent me from protecting the princess. For a moment, the queen studied him, weighing his words, his calm demeanor, and the faint trace of smoke still clinging to his uniform. Then she exhaled sharply. You are reckless, she said, and yet effective. The investigation that followed revealed the intruder's affiliations, a rogue faction from a neighboring system seeking leverage over Sarath Prime. Intelligence suggested the attack was a warning, but the faction had underestimated the palace defenses and the skill of a quiet soldier who had watched shadows all his life. Over the next week, Saren and the palace security reorganized patrols, implemented new defensive grids, and trained the princess in evasive tactics beyond ceremonial drills. Lyra insisted on accompanying him during exercises, and he allowed it, keeping her in sight at all times. The bond that developed between them was subtle, forged not in words but in shared glances, careful movements, and the unspoken understanding of danger. She learned quickly not just how to move and defend herself, but how to anticipate threats, how to trust her instincts, and perhaps how to trust him. Then came the second wave. Under the cover of a solar storm, the rogue faction attempted another strike. This time, Saren and Lyra were ready. Alarms screamed through the palace, red lights flashing across polished halls. Saren led a small counterteam, with Lyra strategically placed behind cover, but observing and coordinating movements. The intruders moved with stealth and deadly intent, but they had not anticipated the princess in sight. She spotted patterns in their advance, calling out directions, and Saren acted on her cues. Together, they created a trap, funneling the attackers into corridors lined with defensive turrets. When the last intruder fell, Saren looked at Lyra, who was grinning despite the adrenaline. Not bad, he said. Not bad at all, she replied, her eyes sparkling. Queen Alara entered moments later, furious once more, but this time tempered with pride. She approached Saren, her gaze intense. Vale, you have risked your life twice for my daughter. You will receive commendation, but understand this. My daughter's safety is paramount. Do not make me regret trusting you. Saren bowed slightly. Your Majesty, it is my duty. Always. The queen exhaled, finally allowing a trace of relief. See that you do not falter. Princess Lyra, she said, turning to her daughter. You have much to learn about danger and about courage. Lyra smiled faintly. I already have a teacher. Queen Alara's eyes softened, though the storm of authority lingered. Very well, but remember, courage without wisdom can be fatal. Weeks turned into months. The palace grew safer, the training more rigorous, and the bond between the silent guard and the young princess deepened. Saren remained quiet, observant, ever vigilant, but he had earned her trust, and a quiet respect from her mother as well. When the twin moons rose over Sarath Prime, Lyra often found herself practicing late into the night under Saren's watchful eye, each movement a lesson in discipline and survival. And though he spoke little, each word carried weight, each glance an assurance that she was never truly alone. The queen never interfered during these sessions, though she always observed from a distance, her presence a constant reminder of authority and expectation. Yet, she allowed Lyra the freedom to learn from the man who had saved her life.